I'm being told already that my encoding is overloaded. Thanks, OBS. I only literally just started by pressing the button, but thanks. Yeah, so today is something a little bit different. So normally I'd come on here and, well, at this time of day, I normally wouldn't come on here at all. But today, I have something very, very special. Thanks to EA and the EA Creator Network, I can do a feature review thing of the new Formula 122 game using some footage I pre-recorded from the preview build that we currently have access to, or had access to, just to talk about what's new in the game and to talk about my thoughts and so on going forwards. So I've got a few different... I've got a couple of races recorded with the new features that I can talk about that I know of in there as well. There are some bits that I couldn't record for this. They are all sort of related to other bits that aren't part of the build that we had access to for this preview. But nonetheless, if we can get straight into it. This is something very different for me. Obviously, if you follow my social media and stuff, you'll have seen I did my video on the Miami preview last week. That went live on Friday, and doing a video for me was it's out of my comfort zone. I'm not good with the editing and such. So I figured today, as I'm allowed to, I'm going to show you some pre-recorded footage of the F122 build that we currently have, and just talk through the new features and things like that. So it's all going to be very unstructured. If anybody has any anybody that's watching this live, if you have any questions in the chat, feel free to drop them in there, and if I can answer them, I'll try and answer them. If not, sorry. But without further ado, if I open up the first thing, so this is a race I recorded two races earlier, one around Austria, one around the United Kingdom and Silverstone. The first race we'll be taking a look at is an Austria, full race weekend. I'll skip through bits to save time because I'm only allowed to show you so much right now. But it'll be, I've got practice qualifying and the race for the Austria race, and then I've got a sprint race and a full race around Silverstone I could show as well. So, if I just bring my OBS up because I lost it. Apologies. Just getting everything sorted because as much as I plan this, it's Twitch. Hello, Jess. You don't need a link. Never mind. Thank you for the follow, Luke is cool as well. I have no alerts today, obviously, because we're covering something a bit different. But I do still see follows and such that come through, so thank you very much for that. So without further ado, if I go into the first bit of pre-recorded footage I have from Austria, I'll play the audio, I'll jiggle with the audio as things go along. I can talk through the features. I've got a list of order of features that should show up if I've done this right. So if we go in here, so it goes straight from the introduction, wet qualifying, as you can see, if I just tweak the volume down a little bit so it's not so deafeningly loud. Yeah, so standard intro stuff. This was for the practice session that I did where I was in a Red Bull as Max Verstappen for this race.
Intermediate tyres are your best bet in the current conditions.
And that voice may be new to some people. This is the first thing I can talk about, is the race engineer is no longer Jeff. Jeff isn't going to be race engineering in this game. Instead, we have been blessed by Mark Priestley, formerly of McLaren, who will be doing all of the race engineering stuff. And
The rain's getting worse. Be very careful.
and it sounds very, very good because they recorded his lines on an actual sort of F1 engineer headset. So it's all very, very as realistic as they can go, which is super, super cool. So, as you can see, we're now in the 2022 Red Bull, if I can get my words out. This is where being live over not being live. I'll trip over words a lot. But So we're going around Austria now. I will apologise beforehand for the quality of driving. There's a reason I commentate and not drive in leagues is I'm not very good. So it's a bit scruffy, but you can see what's going on here anyway. The reason I did a practice session here was I was hoping to be able to test out one of the new practice features that we've been told about, which unfortunately didn't show up, I'm assuming, because it's not like a career mode, it's just a practice mode in Grand Prix, which is an augmented reality element that we know of for practice programs that shows up. And we saw some screenshots of that. There was like a heat map that came up throughout to see how you're performing through the lap, and some new features for that practice session. But I'm not entirely... I don't want to say too much about that until I've seen it myself, because one, I saw that press conference a while ago, and as much as I've got notes, my memory is that of a sieve, and a lot of things fall out of it. But there are new features in the practice programs to look forward to, and I'm hoping we get some more builds where we can see a bit more of those, and I can show those off in some videos and live streams and such later down the line. So this is the practice session coming to a close. If we get... That's still in practice. So here we are. End of practice. I retired from the practice session because I binned it. Oops. And we'll notice another new feature that will pop up in a minute. You may have caught it there. That's not Crofty. We've got the ability now to swap between hosts and also commentators. So not only have we replaced Jeff with Mark Priestley, we can now replace Crofty with Alex Jakes if we like, or we can replace Ant Davidson with Natalie Pinkham. I always say her name wrong, but it's Breaking Bad stuck in my head. So we've got some more customization on that side of things, and I've got it written down somewhere. Here we are. So foreign languages also get this. So we can also, for the foreign language versions, run with Jack Villeneuve or Sasha Roos from the foreign language broadcasts, which is super cool. So we've actually got more personalities getting involved, more voices, more customization. I'm very, very excited to see how the combinations change, because it's not just something you do on the main menu either. As you'll see a little bit later on, you can change it between sessions. So if you want Alex Jakes to cover your qualifying session, and then you want Crofty to do the actual race, go ahead, do that. In between the sessions in the Grand Prix mode, it'll show up with a little menu where it says advance to the next session. You can then, at that point, go into the audio settings and just change it. For this build, we couldn't change from Ant Davidson, so I can't show any voice lines for Natalie off, but we can swap between Alex Jakes and Crofty here, which is super, super cool. Now, this lap was super, super scruffy, so we'll ignore that. I'll let the lap go on so you can see where I wound up on the grid. I made some places back. I didn't start 19th, I promise. I'm not that bad. I think the AI at this point, I've got it set to about 80, but of course the difficulty in that might change sort of as development goes on. And speaking of the AI, there is, for new players, as I struggle to maintain the Red Bull, a new feature for the AI for this season called Adaptive AI. So Adaptive AI there's two settings for the Adaptive AI. There's sort of a standard version which is designed for new players, and there's also a much harsher version for people new to racing games in their entirety. And these are aimed to be able to allow sort of newer players to have the wheel-to-wheel racing that makes games like this fun without feeling overwhelmed. So it will forego sort of strategy and things. So you'll be racing wheel-to-wheel on hard tires against somebody that's on softs maybe, if you've got the Adaptive AI turned on, because it's just there to give you that racing feeling. It's not designed to go super in depth. So for people like me, for league racers and stuff like that, it's not really intended for us. It's more designed for the newer player, but it is very cool nonetheless. And I know my wife, who doesn't play many racing games, is very, very excited to actually have a difficulty that will allow her to play around a race, because she doesn't play that many racing games. She's not as into it as I am, so she's very, very excited by that addition. So as we go through the grid order, we can show off another new feature in a moment, along with the augmented reality practice programs, there's also some new augmented reality stuff coming in as well, in the form of pit stops and in formation laps. So in the older versions of the game, when you do a formation lap, you would get around to sort of the last couple of corners, and then the AI would take over, park you up, and you'd be there waiting for the lights. No more. For now, we control the car all the way to the grid box, and we've got this little augmented reality thing as well as a little heads-up display to tell us where to park the car, and you can park your car either aggressively or defensively, depending on how you're feeling at the start of a race. So, whereas in the real world, you'll sometimes see Max Verstappen pointing slightly to the inside to cover off a rival on the start of the race, you can do that now. And I will admit, for me so far, it's been tricky to judge, but that might be because I'm a bit rubbish. It does give you a marker, so that's realistically, it probably is on me. Here I am changing with the strategy. Let's just get out onto the formation lap. So here we are. So I'm just working on the tyres at this point. We've got F1 Elvis in my ears telling me what to do on the formation lap. As you see, I'm starting 12th because me, apparently. So, where was I? We were on about the augmented reality. Yes, See, I forget what I'm doing. Apologies. So the formation lap, this is all very standard formation lap as we've come to expect through this point. You know, you're following the other cars around, and then you get to the grid. If you don't like doing this, and I know for a while I didn't like doing this, so I would just skip the formation lap and just be on the grid. There is a new option that you can have now, as well as for safety cars and pit stops, which I'll show off a little bit later on as well, is a broadcast mode. So for your formation lap, your safety car periods, and your pit stops, you can change between broadcast and immersive mode. Immersive mode leaves you in the car to do whatever you need to do to keep the tyres warm and so on. The broadcast mode will give you a TV cam view, as we can see the heads-up display popping up there to show me my grid box is nowhere near me because I'm a couple of corners away still. It sort of takes you out of the car into the TV views to see what's going on and skips time a little bit so you're not stuck behind a safety car forever. But here is you can see the little blue box up there as well. I do my level best to hit it. You can see it bleeping at me as well now to tell me you're getting near your grid box, stop, and then I park too far forwards like an idiot, and it puts me in just a standard place. But you could see for a split second there that the augmented reality element changed. It went red, green, purple, red, and that is, you know, your good start position, your optimal start position, or you've messed it up, you moron. And sort of, it's there as an indicator. All the augmented reality elements, as far as I can see, have that similar sort of philosophy of, you know, purple good, green, or green good, purple better, red bad. Just it follows through with sector times sort of looking the same way. So it's very nice to see. And at this point, I'm making a real hash of this corner, but we get a virtual safety car come up here, which I also then make a mess of. I didn't realise Ocon was ahead of me, and now I'm slowing down to try and let him past, and he wouldn't go past. But we do, in a moment, get a full safety car, which I've got all of the settings in this to immersive. But what I do like is that we can get, VSC into SC. That's very nice. So if we skip through, you can see I'm still driving and catching the safety car queue here. I made a pit stop under this safety car as well, actually, come to think of it. So we'll get through this. So I got a bit of damage in that collision with Russell and the collision with Ocon there. So I've knocked a bit off my front wing, and I'm thinking I need to pit, even though I'm on the alternate strategy, and it's painful to have to pit at the end of lap 1 on mediums and go on to hards for the remainder of the race. But we managed it nonetheless. I also did pick up a penalty, which you'll see in a moment. I should have picked up another one for crossing that white line there. Naughty, naughty. But here we go into the pits then. We'll see the second augmented reality element coming in a moment as we barrel down towards the pit lane. And you see this bit that's popped up here. If I just pause the video to talk about this before it goes away. So we now have... my mouse is being captured. This bit that pops up here, as well as the blue box up there. So this blue box, similar to our grid position box, signals where we need to turn in to make our pit stop. So no longer will you just drive in and drive off. There's a little bit of a almost mini-game-esque sort of thing, which will have effects on your race. If you mess this up, you can have a slower stop, and your pit crew can and will make mistakes, and sort of wheels will take a while to get on or off, and so on and so forth. So it's not completely risk-free, just press a button, I did a pit stop. There is more to this, which is very, very cool. It adds that element of realism. You make a mistake on the pit stop, and oh no, you've pulled too far forwards in your grid box, and all your engineers have got to shuffle down the pit lane a little bit, and it takes you a bit of time, which is very, very cool. So you see, it's also got the timer on here to tell you how long until you've got to turn in, and the button you need to press, and it's also telling me I've got a penalty because I'm a scrub. So here we go, and you can see we've got the arrows to tell us to turn in. Boom, we nailed that. We got the optimal turn in, so we're expected to have a 7.5 to 7.9 second stop, not including the 5 seconds I'm standing still for the penalty. I have seen when I failed that pit stops take about a second longer if you really mess that up. I think I've had like 8.4, 8.5 second stops for messing that up when I did the Miami race, for example. So there is definite time to be lost and gained in the pit stops now. It's not just a formality, which is I'm very, very excited to see how that plays out in league races as well, especially. Because that could swing races if league races run with the immersive pit stop thing on. If they make the mistake, it could be the difference between somebody winning or losing. And as a league racing commentator, that is very, very exciting indeed. But here we are, back behind the safety car again then. And I realise we're getting on for time a bit. So you can see, let's show this on this. The race takes a bit of a turn. I get past Magnussen on the restart, and then I'm stuck behind Stroll. I think I make a bit of a cock up here. And I'll show this off, because even though it's not a new feature, it is a feature nonetheless. So we get to turn 1. I come around turn 1, a little bit too much curve on the inside, and stop. I'm thinking, oh crap. Luckily, flashbacks are still a thing, so we can just go back to when I'm on the straight and carry on. I'm very glad they're still in the game, because I'm a clumsy person. Eventually we get through this race. Let's just find a nice portion of this race. Oop. That's me doing another mistake. So there's another safety car came out. If we skip past, everybody pits during this safety car as well, and I wind up third somehow. So with the safety car coming in, and the race just going on, I think I flashback here because I nearly hit the back of Sainz, or did hit the back of Sainz. I can talk you through a few more of the things that I'm not going to be able to show off today because they're not in this build. So the big thing that is brand new for this that we can say a bit about is the F1 Life. Almost coming as a sort of almost in lieu of a story mode a la Breaking Point that we saw, because we're not getting that this year because they don't have the time. It takes a while for them to get everything ready for that. I think we were told for a 2-year development cycle, that would be maybe feasible, but for a 1-year development cycle, it's probably not. So they're focusing their attention on other areas of the game, F1 Life being one of them. And it's going to be like the main lobby for multiplayer. It's going to be your player hub where your character lives, basically. You make your character in the game, and he's not just somebody that sits in a Formula 1 car anymore. You can kit him out with different branded gear. You can, put your trophies up in your trophy cabinet. Your friends can come and visit your F1 Life little house. You can decorate it with different furniture and make it really look like a home for your character. Pretty much, we've seen a few shots. I don't have them to hand of the customization, sofas, hi-fis, paintings on the wall, stuff like that. It's going to be really cool, and a lot of the stuff is branded as well. I don't think we've got a full list of all the brands that are available yet, but it does seem like there's going to be a fair few sort of branded things as well. So if you wanted to own, I don't know, a watch made by your favourite watchmaker, maybe you can in this, because the clothes are now there. Leading in from the F1 Live stuff as well, you can display your supercars at your house. So this is a very new thing that I was very, very excited about. I think the first time I saw about this feature was on the Steam page when they first dropped the reveal trailer, and it was the only place that mentioned it, and my mind was exploding at the possibilities of it. And it turns out the possibilities are pretty much what we were expecting it to be. you get your supercars, and they're not just there for show. You can drive these supercars around the tracks in the Pirelli Hot Laps mode, which is super duper cool. I'm very excited about this. Driving around in a McLaren or so on and so forth is going to be super, super cool. So we've got different modes. There's experiences, there's challenges. You can do some autocross. There's drift events you can do, speed zones, or rival duels, which sound very fun. And also, all of the cars are available in time trial, which is going to be fun because now you can set times in these cars, or you can go in supercars as well, just for a bit of a extra twist. And it also diversifies it as well, which is going to be very cool. There is an additional thing to this. There's already been a supercar, or for the last couple of years, 2 supercars in the game already, in the form of the safety cars. Those are drivable as a deluxe bonus, and I cannot wait. You can be the safety car. No longer, you don't have to download a mod to turn a Formula 1 car into a safety car anymore. You could just hop behind the wheel of the AMG safety car or the Aston Martin safety car. So, what else do we have to talk about? Let's take a look at my list. So, we've mentioned, of course, that Breaking Point, the story mode, sadly isn't going to be in this version of the game due to time constraints of a 1-year development cycle, sadly. But VR is also being added, which is exciting. Now, I don't own VR headsets. VR still got quite a high price point to it. But I have seen some footage of the VR, and it looks so, so cool to be driving around in one of these cars and to look left and actually look left. No messing with a stick. You just turn your head. It looks incredibly immersive, and I really, really will try and get a VR headset to play this game in VR because it does look amazing. Crossplay is another big talking point of F122. Now, it was a bit of a confusing talking point to begin with, as I think the press release came out slightly wrong, but at launch of the game, cross-gen is going to be available. So if you buy the game on Xbox One, you will be able to play with players that are on Xbox Series X or Y, same with PlayStation 4 and 5. Later on down the line, and we don't have a set time frame for this yet, but we have it confirmed that at some point after launch, cross-play will be enabled, which, when that gets through the web of the internet, I can see league organisers rejoicing with that. There won't be this big divide anymore between console players and PC players. Everybody will be able to race in one league. It won't matter about your console choice. It won't matter if you've not got a PC that can handle the game. If you've got the console anymore, you can race with the PC players. And it's going to be huge for esports that we can just homologate this league all together and have all of the fastest drivers in the world in the same league, regardless of what they play the game on. And it's going to make it so much more competitive and so much more exciting to watch and to talk about. Another thing that you may have noticed throughout this game is the big talking point in the real world of Formula 1 this year in porpoising, and the fact that I'm not. We did get a word from the developers on this, is when they designed the new model for handling and tyres, which I will get to a little bit later on when we're talking about the next race, most likely. It was before we saw the cars on track. They weren't aware of this porpoising issue when they made the cars. And because they've already made the physics model, I think realistically they could put porpoising in the game, but honestly, I don't want it. And I don't think they intend on putting it in either. It would just be too distracting. Yes, it would be more immersive and more real, but also I can barely pick a breaking point when I'm not bouncing up and down like I'm sitting on a trampoline. So God knows how well I'd do with porpoising involved. No, I'd be terrible. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. And with VR, if you really want porpoising, just jump up and down in your chair down the straight. There's your porpoising. My sarcasm probably comes across really terrible on the internet. I'm well aware of this. The final major thing to talk about before this race draws to a close is the developments for My Team. So My Team has been a staple feature in the Formula 1 games for some years now. It's returning this year, and I should preface this by saying all of the features that I'm talking about will be available for the co-op campaign career mode as well, which is going to be a thing, as far as I'm aware anyway. So department events were added last year in F1 2021 in your My Team career. Those will be also included in this game as I drift around the final corner as Max Verstappen. They will be in this year as well, only they will be expanded. So if you don't deal with them properly, there are now going to be consequences for that. It's not just a case of press a button and make it go away. You have to think about your answers. There's a bit more of an RPG element to it, a bit more of a realism element to it as well. In terms of interviews as well, it's not just going to be, you know, the interviewer coming up to you at the end of the race going, "Oh, you were a bit of an idiot magnet out there today. You hit a few people," or "You had a good race," or "Ooh, not the weekend you would have wanted." The questions will be topics, and they will become threaded across multiple races to do with rivals. Season targets will be a big thing as well. So if your team is targeting to finish, I don't know, 7th in the Constructors' Championship, and you expect questions to be around there, which is going to be cool. Again, it sort of gets you into it a bit more, rather than sort of an interview that's sort of tacked on, that's like, "Well, that was a good race," or "Not so good that time around," or "Car looked great," and then you pick whichever department you want to say you want to make the happiest. It's more involved, which is very cool indeed. And if your issues that pop up aren't properly handled, then escalations will happen. I'm not quite sure what that is, and I'm trying to think of an example of something that might happen off the top of my head. So, no, I can't think of anything. But, yeah, escalation sounds interesting. Sort of if you decide to ignore something, it might get worse. Finally, there are going to be some new cutscenes that pop up in a moment when the race finishes, as we're drawing to a close of this first little race that I did. If we cut across the race, have the video having a few issues there as I was on the final lap. But here we go. We're coming across the line now, and we will take a look. There's some new cutscenes that are sort of a bit more designed around what we'd see in the real world, and one of them I very much like and I'm very excited to see. Obviously, we get the team celebrating for the win, which is, you love to see it. The new cars, which I know the engine noises in these cars aren't final. I imagine the car models aren't either, because I believe they're all currently using the FIA chassis, which we know in the real world they don't. But obviously, as you can see from the top, work in progress. Plenty of time to get stuff like that, updated and ready and super silky smooth. But even so, they look gorgeous, these cars. I can't get over how staggeringly gorgeous these cars look. But now we get this cutscene where we get to see the walking towards the podium with the screens on the side. Very, very much like we see nowadays with the screens. I very much like that. A lot of the animations and stuff, specifically around like pit crews and things, have been redone for this year as well. Obviously, because the wheels have changed. It would look a bit odd if they were shifting them around the same way they did with the 13-inch rims. So they re-recorded it all, and they used actual, proper F1 kit for it. So when the engineers are lugging around wheel guns and tyres and stuff, it's not just, bits of cut-out foam anymore. It looks real because they were handling real stuff when they mocapped it, which was super, super cool. So that is the end of the first little bit of video that I have to show you. We've got just a few other little things to talk about beforehand. So another thing that we can do in the game is sprint races. So when you go to your weekend structure menu, you can now change to sprint plus race. Now you can do this at any track. It's not just the ones that have sprint races in real life. You can go and change it in any track. So you can see, where are we? Let's get to that point. Boom, right there. And at this point, I'm changing it for Silverstone, which is not it is a sprint track, actually. I didn't choose this well, did I? That's what I get for not looking things up before I prep. But yeah, you can do it on any circuit. I did it on Miami last week when I was messing around. Any track you like. There is an authentic mode, which will only put it on tracks that have sprint races. Or if you fancy doing a sprint race like I did here at wherever, just turn the option on and boom, sprint race. The next option you'll see me get to in just un momento is there's weather, and here is the settings for the immersive and broadcast stuff, which can be toggled. It's not just a single broadcast or immersive. If you, for example, wanted your immersive pit stops, but you want broadcast safety car, absolutely fine. Obviously, at this point in the video, I've got safety cars and formation laps turned off because I forgot to change the race distance, but it's as standard, less than 25%, no safety cars or formation laps. 25% or higher, go nuts. And I think I do actually change the race settings in here, yeah. So there's my settings. If anybody's interested in what race settings I was on here, that's them. There we go. So I put everything to broadcast for this race. I also put increased safety cars on, because I was actively trying to hunt a safety car down to be able to show off the way the broadcasting works. Whoops. Wasn't meant to show you that bit, but there you go. So we get the sprint race out of the way. I don't think there's anything to show you in there particularly interesting. If we go to here now, just to show you, you can change the commentator wherever I'm in the settings in between the sprint and the main race here. And you can see there's an option for Alex Jakes. And now it's David Croft. And you can change that in between sessions if you like. Absolutely no problem with that. But now, onto the final bit of footage I have to show you today in another race, where I can show you off just these broadcast sections that we have available as well. I think at this point I'm changing the audio back to Crofty. Let's go into it. So this is the broadcast formation lap. So whereas before I was driving the formation lap and I could position my car on the grid, now we get the broadcast mode, which gives us the TV cameras, bit of crofty fluff as we drive the cars around. I've qualified in 7th for this race. If you're wondering, I'm driving as Lando Norris. So we're in the midfield for a bit more sort of look at how the action unfolds. So we get the broadcast, you get your predicted pit stop strategy stuff, all as you would in the sort of real world or in an esports league or so on and so forth. It's all. It's. I very much enjoy that we have this option now to have these broadcast cameras on for a little while. And now we get to see pulling up on the grid. Here's Lando driving into his grid box. Cruising on down and stop. And then we see all the rest of the cars popping in and driving into their boxes. And as the grid forms up, we then fade to black and we're back in the car again. And then away we go. The other thing to show off here would be if I skip through, because we've all seen races before. Still on the soft tyres here. Still on the soft tyres. If we skip through to where I make a pit stop, or the safety car, whichever comes first. I'm still not making a pit stop. I'm up to 6th at this point. I'm having a decent race, as it happens. I did make some nice moves and some very, if I say so myself, nice defending against specifically Fernando Alonso at this point. Here we are. So I come into the pits here on this lap to change off of these soft tyres, bang it into the pit lane, and then we go straight immediately to the broadcast camera. And Crofty even tells us that, McLaren are coming in for the pits. They'll be after a fast turnaround, and he's got a bit of commentary as we go on. We see most of the field came into the pits here, but we didn't get held up really, which was very nice indeed. Bang, on go the wheels, car goes out. And it was a decent 2.9 second stop. And we get a little graphic now to tell us the stint and the estimated life and how long I very, very much like that. It's all adds to the feel of we're actually part of an F1 race here. And then back into the car. And Mark pops on the radio to tell us, don't kill your tyres. And away we are. I think At this point, I'm trying to catch back up to the back of Ocon. Here he is. And I apologise, Ocon, for what I'm about to do, because I think I'm about to bin him into a wall for a safety car, because he's a lot slower than me. I do not condone doing this. This is very bad, very, very bad. But I wanted a safety car, and it wasn't happening. Bye, Ocon. And he causes a crash. I get a bit of a warning, and I think he went straight into the side of someone. Or something of the like. You know, I thought that's what caused the safety car, but it didn't, did it? Albon.
Okay, we've been informed of an incident which has resulted in lots of loose
Albon caused the safety car.
car is being deployed.
So here we are. The safety car's been deployed, and as standard, we're on to catch the safety car queue. And I got a bit confused here because it's trying to catch the race leader, and George, bless him, brakes to try and not hit the back of the safety car, thinking he's in the race lead, evidently. And I have to take evasive action, which I wasn't very appreciative of. And then eventually he's like, oh wait, I'm not leading the race. Hang on, Mr. Safety Car. What? Why am I following you? I should be catching the back of the pack. Okay. And off he goes. And I follow him round because he's the next car on the track. So eventually we get round to the back of the safety car queue. Eventually, he says. Looking on the map, we're coming up to it now. So we're still in control at this point. Yes, we're in broadcast mode for the safety car, but the safety car does wait for people. You still have to drive up to the safety car in order to initiate the broadcast mode. But as soon as we get onto the back of the train, in a moment, you'll see the AI will take over. Very similar to how the pit stop works or the formation lap. Just got to go around and catch up. I think we catch up around about Cop's Corner. Or going into Maggots and Beckett's, one of the two. And we sort of have to slam the anchors a little bit to not go into the back of someone. Russell's falling out. The AI takes control. Here we go. So now we fade out to the broadcast cameras. And for a little while, it'll highlight different cars, different drivers. And sort of show a little bit of the action, and it'll skip. If the safety car's out for sort of 4 or 5 laps, it will skip those laps over in sort of this kind of a fashion. It'll flicking between different drivers and so on, and then eventually it'll come back to when the safety car is peeling away into the pits, which is very cool indeed. So you can see we're heading towards lap 9 at this point. Safety car's still out. We get a lovely shot from Club Corner. And all the cars making their way around, and somewhere in there is us. There we are. And I believe there's an achievement for having your car spotlighted during this broadcast safety car thing. And I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do it. But it can happen. It will occasionally pick you as the target to look at as we're following behind the safety car. And then we'll wait for the safety car to end. As you can see, the safety car ending, and this is where it sort of falls over a little bit in this build. It doesn't really know what to track, but I'm pretty confident that'll be sorted when the game does come out in July. As obviously bugs are to be expected from a work in progress, especially this early on as well. It's for something this far from release, it's incredibly well done so far. I've been so happy with it. It's been such a great honor from EA to be able to play this early and sort of show things off this much before the game comes out. I absolutely love it, and I can't thank EA and the Creator Network enough for giving me the opportunity to do this, because it's incredible. But the safety car's now ending, and eventually it'll pull away into the pits on this lap. You can see Mark's telling me how many laps of fuel we got remaining as the race is about to restart. And there we are, we're down in, 7th position for this safety car restart. The lights have gone out. And as we get towards the pit lane, the safety car will pull in. We'll get teleported back down into the driver's seat of our car, and we'll continue racing. And the one thing I will say about the broadcast mode is I'm not sure. Obviously, it's not final, so this could change. I've heard a few things about strategy being changed, particularly in changeable conditions behind the safety car, where if you're trying something, the AI will definitely make sure you're not trying something anymore and maybe make you do an extra pit stop. And also, I was about to say tyre temps, because I felt like my tyres were on fire, but I have the tyre temp screen up, and they're absolutely fine. So I must have cooked it myself. So never mind that one. But here we are. We're back behind the wheel of our own car, and back to racing, absolutely as we were. And that is, if I just flick through my notes, I believe everything I have down in my notes to tell you about today that I have noted. Yeah, so you can see I absolutely binned it there, but that was about as much gameplay as I can get away with showing you today. I've got a few more minutes that I can use of this before I have to go. If anybody watching has any questions or anything like that pertaining to F122, I may be able to answer with the information I have to hand. Of course, one thing I forgot to mention is obviously if you've just seen the pre-orders, Bitcoins are back, as is the season pass, the podium pass as it's called in the F1 series of games, and there's a lot more on that this time. It's not just race liveries and new gloves. With the F1 Live stuff being there as well, we can expect a few bits to do with that to be on the pass as well, sort of different items of clothing and so on and so forth. So that will be back as well. We've seen, of course, the Steam page lists a new livery editor for my team and the multiplayer cars. We haven't seen a full showing off of that. We have seen a few of the options on it. It's not quite. I mean, if you've seen videos of like F1 Mobile Legends, we were sort of thinking it might come up something like that, with the ability, almost Forza style, to move images around on the car. From what we've seen, nothing of that yet, but obviously things could be added and changed before the game comes out. We've only seen such a very small amount of this livery editor so far. But what we have seen is you can copy-paste colour schemes now. So gone are the days where you set your colour scheme for your My Team and then have to try and painstakingly get the pixel right to make the exact same colour for your car livery. Don't need to do that anymore. You can just copy the My Team colour scheme, whack it on the car, job's done, Bob's your uncle, off you go. You can also have different options. So we saw a few different styles. There was matte paint, there was metallic paint, the regular gloss paint that you can have as well. So if you wanted to have a car with ray tracing on that's metallic paint, that's probably going to blind your rivals, because metallic paint can be quite shiny. I imagine, obviously, in the game it won't, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see the sort of different variation as well. It's not just going to be different variations on the different liveries with different colour schemes now. It's going to be different colour schemes and different types of paint. So you could have matte like you see on the Red Bulls, or pretty well most of the teams these days, but you could also have a bright, shiny car, and it won't really affect any of your performance in the same way the real cars do, so you can sort of prioritise looks a bit better as well. So what have we talked about? Let's sort of wrap it up, because I've got a couple of minutes left. So we've seen both the broadcast and the immersive formation laps, the pit stops and the safety cars, as well as the AR elements that come with those. Not forgetting, of course, that the practice programs have an AR element as well, but I couldn't, unfortunately, get any footage of that in this build. The pit stops having timed entry mechanics that then, if you get it wrong, could affect your pit stop. Worth noting on that front as well, on the My Team front, you can train your pit crew through there, so your pit crew makes less mistakes, and the AI are susceptible to these same mistakes. So it's not just something you have to worry about. We've seen the new engineer, Mark Priestley, replacing the departing Jeff. We've seen the fact that we can change between Crofty and Alex Jakes. We've seen F1... Well, I've talked about F1 Life and the Pirelli Hot Laps, driving the supercars and so on. The immersive AI that's designed around newer players. Unfortunately, the lack of a main story, sort of like we saw Breaking Point in this version of the game. VR being a thing for PC. Crossplay and cross-gen. Cross-gen on launch, crossplay coming later on. Porpoising not being a thing in this game. All of the changes to My Team. The new cutscenes, the new animations. The fact that we can use the sprint race in every track. And also the broadcast modes, as we've seen, and all the things we've spoken about. But I will wrap it up there, because I'm rapidly approaching the 45-minute mark, and they'll probably shout at me if I go any over that. So thank you very much for watching. Keep your eyes peeled on my social media and on my YouTube channel, and here on Twitch as well. anytime I can get any chance to put anything out about this game, I absolutely am going to, because I'm loving playing it so far. I've had people whispering me going, how many hours have you put in this already? Lots of it's not recording content. I'm just having a lot of fun. But thank you for watching, and drop a follow if you've enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought, and I will see you all later on.